Perfection. We all have different ideologies of how perfection appears in our own individual lives. We put ourselves in lengthy extremes to plan out vision boards, roadmaps, budgets, and organizing tasks to achieve our own ideal of perfection. After painstakingly long hours in preparation, we set the course for the road without fear or hesitation, leaving doubt in the rearview mirror. Nothing can go wrong. You have planned for everything. You start the ignition, setting off into the unknown, feeling free and invincible, even if only for a brief moment before failing. One of the more underappreciated aspects regarding the beauty of baseball comes in the form of its monotony. Unlike the NFL, where every week is hyper-fixated with matchups and games that will dramatically alter the course of a 17-week season, baseball is a brutally slow and ugly marathon. And while the NFL season structure is ruthlessly effective from a marketing side, I'd argue that the possibility of watching a random Tuesday night game that inspires a city at any moment's notice is more impactful. The chance to be inspired is magnified as a result. Michael Lewis writes, "The pleasure of rooting for Goliath is that you can expect to win. The pleasure of rooting for David is that you stand a chance to be inspired. And one late day in August, David, or rather Rich Hill, stands a chance to inspire the baseball world." It's the 9th inning. Rich Hill trudges up the pitcher's mound in Pittsburgh. It's a meaningless game in late summer August, yet the entirety of the baseball world is watching. How meaningless is this game? Well, the LA Dodgers enter this game with an 89-35 record, and with the remaining 38 games of the 2017 MLB season, the Dodgers could finish 5-33 and still take home the NL West pennant, or go a measly 8-30 and finish with the #1 seed in the entirety of the National League. Across the dugout, the Pirates are 60-66 and will end their 2017 campaign on a whimper. Finishing their remaining 36 games with a 15-21 record, they'll inevitably fall short of the last wildcard spot and kickstart another streak of franchise futility, this being the second of 9 consecutive seasons playing below 500 baseball. And in a few short months, this franchise will make one of the worst trades in baseball history. There's also no bitter or local rivalry associated between the two baseball clubs. Over 2,000 miles separate the two cities, and heck, not even a playoff rivalry to go along with it. The only time these two teams ever even met in the postseason dates back to the 1974 season. Yet, knowing how insignificant this game should be, why is every baseball fan tuning in coast to coast?
Another 3-2. He struck him out! Rich Hill is perfect through 8 innings. Can the offense put him 3 outs away?
Before we go any further, I really feel the need to truly emphasize the sheer magnitude of this event. In the over 150 years of baseball history, the baseball world has witnessed the rise and fall of now historic legends turned into myths. The game has seen the ascension and descension of various eras of baseball, from dead ball to integration to steroid to sabermetric ages, rising and falling as if they were medieval kingdoms. Yet despite all the persistent forces of change affecting the game, one factor remains stubbornly static throughout it all: the perfect game. A perfect game sounds stupidly simple in the very nature of its definition. Do not have any batter reach base by any means possible, recording 27 consecutive outs in one game of at least 9 innings. It all sounds simple enough, right? One of the errors of humanity is that we are fundamentally flawed. This natural inability to be perfect hinders all aspects of our life, which includes a physical limitation and the lack of power of language. I could throw 50 different synonyms of the word difficult at you, and you could still not have a proper understanding of how inconceivably, well, difficult a perfect game truly is. It's at this moment in the crossroads where language and numbers meet in perfect harmony. This is where the power of statistics come in, to fill a void that language itself could never fill. As of the end of the 2024 season, there have been roughly over 240,000 Major League Baseball games played. Yet approaching nearly 2 centuries of baseball, we only have a total amount of 24 perfect games. To put it bluntly at face value, approximately 0.0001% of games have been perfect. In regard to how unlikely a perfect game truly is, Don Leipold from a Fangraphs article published in 2010 writes, "If the average on-base percentage is .331, then the average chance of not getting on base is 1 minus .331, or in this case 669. As a result, the odds of throwing a perfect game can be calculated as 669 times 669 times 669, and so on until the 27th power. This comes up to the minuscule number of 0.001915% of a chance. Go to a random national Diamondbacks games, and the odds of seeing a perfect game at that particular contest are small. Less than 1/500th of 1%. But, just like an infinite number of monkeys pounding on an infinite number of keyboards will produce the complete works of Shakespeare, that figure increases as more and more games are played. Hill has been near this mountaintop before. Just a year prior, Rich Hill, under a strict pitch limit, was abruptly fooled before emerging for the 8th inning in the midst of a perfect game in Miami. Imagine being just 600 meters from the top of Mount Everest, only to be turned around against your will. Yet here we are, this time only 300 meters from the pinnacle of the baseball world. Rich Hill deserves this moment. He has chased this dream with relentless pursuit, following the process and relying on nothing else, even going to the extent of recognizing a market inefficiency in left-handed pitchers, forcing himself to throw left-handed as a result. And it worked! Drafted in 2002 by the Chicago Cubs, Hill spent 3 years in the minors before making his major league debut for a young and up-and-coming Cubs roster. Yet it's at the start of Rich Hill's story where his life and career began to spiral downward. What began in 2005 as a young pitcher looking to bolster an electrifying pitching rotation, led by the likes of Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor, quickly shifted into an ever-growing mountain-sized list of injuries. Eventually, patience for a budding prospect ran out before Hill was relegated to a bullpen role, and then shortly after, cut. Seemingly before it started, his career was halted. 5 teams and 6 years of below replacement level play in the bullpen, piled with a laundry list of injuries, and Rich Hill was on his way out. The process that had got him here failed him. Physically his body failed him, and mentally Rich Hill was tested when at the tail end of his career, shortly after being cut once again, Hill suffered his worst tragedy yet, the loss of his son to a rare brain malfunction. For the vast majority of athletes, this would be the end of the road, a dead end to an otherwise disappointing road trip. Putting it all into perspective, this is the story of a failed starter converted into a reliever who has shown little to zero positive upside or versatility. He's not dominant enough to provide top-end value, nor does he possess the ability to be a workhorse innings eater. All of this while Hill has suffered numerous arm injuries. This is the definition of a failed career. This is simply the end of the line. You do not come back from an incident of this sheer magnitude. And while we've seen this story play out thousands of times in the history of baseball, for Hill, he gains perspective. He finds a new appreciation for life, one that reinvigorates him, giving him a second life. In an interview with Rich Hill, Andy McCullen writes, "As he grieved, Rich Hill fixated on the precious nature of time. He realized that his happiness in baseball revolved around success. He could not guarantee success, but he could guarantee his level of effort." And with that, it leads us back to this late Monday night in Pittsburgh. Rich Hill is pitching. No, not in some beer league or church softball tournament. Not even as a filler piece for a rebuilder, but rather as a critical component of the championship contending LA Dodgers. Since Rich Hill's early career injuries limited his velocity potential, Hill simply found a different method of obtaining outs. Instead of pinpoint mid-90s fastballs, he mastered the art of the curveball, and Hill doesn't really attempt to hide it either, releasing the pitch in almost a completely defenseless state. And as his leg swings across his body and arms flail upward, the hitter waits, we wait, and Hill waits as a slow 70-mile-per-hour pitch approaches the plate. The batter, recognizing the pitch, takes the extra leg kick in preparation to rip the cover off the ball. The ball is just floating in the air defenselessly as Rich Hill. With all their force, they lift their wooden bat from their shoulder, shifting their power from their hips to the extension of their arms, before swinging and missing. The ball didn't even land within 2 feet of the barrel of the bat. Rich Hill slowly approaches the mound in Pittsburgh for the 9th inning. Everyone in the baseball world is staying up late to watch. Rich Hill is someone who deserves this. He's been through the turmoil, the injuries, emotionally and physically. He has gone through it all. If anyone deserves this, he does. But baseball doesn't care about that.
Ground ball to third off of Logan Forsythe. Perfect game broken up. No-hitter still intact. Rooted in on Forsythe.
Rich Hill, while no longer perfect, ends the 9th inning with a no-hit bid. While a no-hitter is 14 times more common than a perfect game, there being 326 compared to 24, we have to remember that we are talking about the difference between 1% of 1 in 500 versus the odds of just .0023. This is still a tremendously difficult task to achieve.
9 no-hit innings for Rich Hill. The perfect game gone. The no-hitter still intact. The offense trying to make it matter as we go to the 10th.
Yet, the traditionally overly cautious Dave Roberts leaves Rich Hill to go the distance, and some. In our modern analytical age, pitchers' arms are preserved for longevity and efficiency. This goes against everything we can fathom statistically. This will fail by all means. To provide an overly simple answer, the more hitters see the same pitcher at the same arm angles and same velocity, the more comfortable they become. This is reflected in the numbers. The difference between a player's first plate appearance versus their third plate appearance is a nearly 30% increase of stats for a hitter. And as the Pirates approach Rich Hill to face him for the 4th time, this should not work. But heck, not even Rich Hill should be here. So why not give it a shot? Why not give Hill a shot to write his name in the history books, to be immortalized in baseball and Dodger history? Rich Hill throws a fastball in the zone to Josh Harrison, and as John Boyce says about Dave Steve's no-hitter,
this is how the sport of baseball moves. Not at all, and then all at once, with such terrifying speed the lines begin to bend. And then not at all.
Your heart breaks for Rich Hill.
In a short span of 10 minutes, Rich Hill has been on the doorstep of perfection before violently being thrown aside. He will be saddled with a loss. Hill has done everything methodically, yet other shortcomings resulted in his missed opportunity. Rich Hill was and never will be perfect. Sooner or later, Rich Hill in this meaningless midseason game that held no remarkable meaning other than a single tally in a grueling 162-game season that demands to be played, will be forgotten. The people who attended the game will be replaced with the next generation, and decades from now, baseballs will have new names and storylines. And that's okay. There's a lesson in all of this to be learned here from Rich Hill. Hill could have rightfully lashed out on his team's performance, and surely his teammates in the media would have understood where his anger stemmed from. He could have let the very thought of perfection destroy him externally and internally. But rather, Rich Hill focuses on improving himself and what he could have done better. Despite the Dodgers offense not providing a single run across 10 innings, Rich Hill would go on to say, "It falls on me this one. Late in a game like that, I need to make better pitches. Right now, I'm just looking forward to tomorrow." I know it sounds a little boring, but that's it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Rich Hill's career will end quietly. He will never be written into any history books. He'll never make it to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Baseball will simply pass over him and forget about him. And as his career ends in the same state in which it gave him a second life, if you're left here wondering why I care about the stupid regular season game featuring 2 teams that I have no fandom or association with, it's because I can't help but see myself and my own failures reflected in this game. I'm making this video because at times I can struggle to feel genuine emotions, and baseball simply provides that outlet for me to experience the lows and highs of emotions. Whether it's the lows of a perfect game being blown in the 9th inning, or the highs of an unexpected walk-off home run. While a baseball diamond is an analytical minefield and a stock market for players filled with bulls and bears, it's also a place to experience genuine human emotions. More precisely, when I think of Rich Hill's lone shot of perfection, I think about my own experiences. You see, I had this novel dream of working in baseball. The idea invigorated me with enough passion, driving me through early 5 a.m. truck shipments to 8 a.m. morning classes to 10 p.m. closing shifts. For 4 years, I was a full-time college student and a full-time manager for a soul-sucking retail job. I hated every second of it. However, I recognize these sacrifices to my youth as an ends to my means, a way to get ahead of my class, to ensure that my career plans went accordingly. I graduated with honors, debt-free, and caught a break with the Phillies as an intern. My plan was going accordingly. The process that got me here had begun to pay its dividends. But as I transitioned to various dead-end minimum wage roles with the team, I felt that I had done everything right, yet failed. No full-time job opportunities opened up, and 2 years of 70-hour work weeks began to take its toll on me. And eventually I couldn't afford to keep this dream anymore. I worked until my back broke, and then I kept working. I worked until I mentally broke, and then I kept working. Until there was nothing left but a hollow shell of myself, completely void of life. Until I collapsed. Something that I had been working toward for 6+ years was suddenly out of the rearview mirror. During this time, I built a personal philosophy around the idea that I can't fail as long as I worked hard enough. Or if I wanted it more, then surely I would secure a career. But after years and years of labor, it was only at my lowest point that I had to learn that you can do everything right and still fail. Just like Rich Hill. After putting my dreams to rest, I jumped from job to job, never really feeling fulfilled in life. And then I got laid off, and as I was entering what I've always been told should be the peak years of my life, I felt like I was starting from square one again. I failed as a photographer, a human, and worst of all, a friend at times. I was consumed by perfection. I didn't realize it then, but I do now. The past 6 years have been arguably the most difficult of my life. I felt like I had grown to a worse version of myself physically and mentally. It took me a long time to let go of that dream, but if there's one thing I've taken away from the struggles is that I'm learning to rediscover myself, or rather who I was. At times I think maybe I wanted this too much, but I can't let that journey take who I am. Yes, it was a dream, but I can't let a dream take away my humanity. Now I'm on the road back. I'm trying new things, rediscovering my values in the process. And from the unlikely place of a superhero movie is where I learned...
It was my dream.
Sometimes, to do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most. Even our dreams.
To be honest, I struggled to find a way to end this for the longest time. I never wanted to leave on a cynical note because there's more than enough of that in our current world. It's only then when I took a look at those who were perfect, for just one day. While the illustrious perfect game cements you as a legend in baseball history forever, I want to pause and take a brief look at Felix Hernandez and remember what truly matters. Felix Hernandez was perfect for just one single day. Yet his youth and excellence was wasted on dramatically underperforming teams for over a decade. He gave it his all despite the failures and faults of those around him. Yet what truly matters to me is not the workhorse innings he provided, it's not the wins he provided, it's not even the legendary perfect game. What truly matters is the people and community surrounding you. While my plans never came to fruition, Felix Hernandez and the city of Seattle showed me the importance of the people around me is what truly matters. So as we see the King of Seattle making his final stand, he stands alone on the pitching mound, a shell of himself. One of the greatest pitching talents in baseball history, depleted. Hardly able to get through 3 innings anymore, let alone 8. Yet at his weakest and lowest point in his career, the very people he fought for lift him up. While the past 6 years I was never truly happy pursuing my dream, there were amazing people I met along the way, people who helped me through that process. And while maybe I disappointed myself, these were the people who picked me up despite my flaws and imperfections. If you expect to be perfect in your own life, you will never really truly appreciate it when maybe it truly is. You'll be constantly seeking more and more in the process, devaluing people around you when you have everything you needed. Arguably, there's no inherent fault in desiring perfection. However, what truly is important than perfection is how we handle ourselves. Our culture has overvalued perfection, and as a result, it misses out on the truly unique things. It's not the perfect games, but rather the imperfect people. We all fail. Failure shapes us, and our response to failure forms our identity. I've never felt where I should be socially throughout high school and college, and now in my career. I feel I failed in all these aspects. I persistently feel that I have fallen short of my own standards and expectations. But this game and this story matters to me because baseball has taught me that in a world full of perfectionism, it's okay to be imperfect. Perfection never defined us.
Humans were never intended to be perfect. That's part of the definition of being human. Consider the expression, "I'm just human." We need to remind ourselves that the goal isn't to emulate a machine, but to embrace the imperfection of being human.
Game of baseball right here. Absolutely. The love and emotion for a player who gave his heart to this city, to this organization. Hugs to all his infielders. Scott Service.